That's my boy right there, Matthew Cicero, sitting in a tree. I can't tell if he's asleep or just really relaxed. We're tag teaming a buck we call Lucky Buck. He's been after this buck for a while and had some really close calls with it. So we're tucked away on a little bitty green field out in the middle of the woods. This is one of those fields that gets overlooked. None of the other hunters want to hunt this spot because, number one, there's no shooting house on this field. Number two, there's no ground blind on this field. Number three, it's just too small of a field. The hunters can't see very far. You can't see very far into the woods. Too thick all the way around it. It's hard to access. You can park within 200 yards of the field and walk in, but if you do, the deer know you're there, so you have to park at a gate and walk in. That makes this little field just a little bit better than all the other fields in the club. The bucks will actually visit this field during daylight hours, and it's tucked up next to a bed area. So all those things are a plus in my eyes, but in some of the other hunters' eyes, they're all negatives. That'll give you something to think about. Now I'm set up in a pinch point in the head of a drainage. The ridge this little old buck's coming down from, he's coming out of a corner of a doe bed area. What these deer do, they come out of that little corner, they're circling downwind to this doe bed area on this trail, catching all the trails that cross up and down this drainage, going in and out of that doe bed area, hunting a doe. So he's using his nose. Now he's going to stop and pick up a couple of acorns there while he has the opportunity, but then he's going to continue on around this ridge on the downwind side, hoping he can cut the trail of a hot doe or one fixing to come in to heat. Young bucks always get an early start. This little old buck come running out of there as well. The wind's done picked up. It's getting kind of noisy. He just did a little grunt right there. You can't hear it, but he's smelling something. I don't know what he's smelling, but he got that little bit of excited look on his face like, hey, this might be a doe. He is a young buck, so I'm not going to put a lot of thought into it, but he obviously thinks he's on to something, so he got that little nose just a-working, trying to figure it out. He ain't smelling where the other buck walked, because the other buck walked above him and went the other direction. I'm not really sure what caught his eye right here, but he spotted me up in that tree and didn't like it. Might have been a reflection off my glasses. Could have been anything. I don't think it was my movement because it's really windy and the wind is kind of camouflaging my movement quite a bit. A little later on, another little buck come through here. He was going the other way as well. I'm trying to grunt to this low buck, but I think it's just too windy. The good thing about being mobile is you can pick up and move your tree stands to different locations and keep hopping around trying to find the big boys. I'm set up on a little creek crossing right now, and this buck's doing the same thing. He's checking these trails where all these deer cross this creek. They cross it in multiple little areas up and down this creek, and he's trying to cut the trail of a hot doe. This is what they do this time of year. They'll circle downwind of bed areas. They'll crisscross trails on creek crossings. They try to find these places where they can find the most activity, if that makes sense, because they're not going to sit and just stomp and run around the woods. They're strategically trying to find these locations where the deer concentrations are. Diversity of habitat, bed areas, water, creek crosses, all these things play into this. He's probably been running around chasing does. He's a little bit thirsty so he can get a drink of water. There's a scrape over there just to my left. He's gonna ease over there and touch the leaking branch a little bit on that scrape. Get the limbs to shaking. You can see him when he throws his head up in there. He doesn't really paw the ground. I don't think the ground is as important as the branch itself, because if you were to go down there and break that branch off, you'd just kill that scrape. They wouldn't use it no more. This buck, he don't even attempt to paw the ground. He just kind of licks the branch a little bit, rubs a little scent on there, and he's on his way. This is another little buck come through the same little trail. He doesn't stop to get a drink of water or hit the licking branch. He's just continuing on up that trail, trying to cut the track of a doe or see where all the other deer are doing and where they're at. Now I'm hunting the does, trying to find the big bucks. I'm thinking, well, if the bucks ain't cruising, maybe they're with the does already. So now I'm on the downwind side of a doe bed area in a drainage full of acorns. Late evening, the does coming out, hitting these acorn trees, and they're hitting them heavy. I've got does everywhere. That's the actual bed area right there, and one doe's coming out of it. I'm really close to this doe bed area. I use the creek as an access to get up this drainage. I'm on the downstream side of the creek. The thermals are going to be pulling down that draw into that creek, keeping my scent away from these does coming out of the bed area. I may actually be too close to the doe bed area, and hindsight's 2020. If I were a big buck, I would be downwind of where I'm actually sitting to be checking these does. But you just never know. Sometimes the bucks will just blast off into these little bottoms, start chasing these does around, and sometimes they won't. It just depends on the hunting pressure and how spooky the deer are. In this case, these are pretty highly pressured deer, so my setup is probably really good for a doe kill and probably really bad for a buck kill. At any rate, these does will work themselves up this drainage away from me. They never do get downwind of me, so that's a good thing. I don't spook any of them. They'll eventually work their way out. Now, I did see a glimpse of antlers up in the head of that hollow. I couldn't really tell what they were. It was so dark. My binos were just starting to lose light. That's how dark it was. But a buck did come in and did investigate. I just don't know the size of this buck. Nevertheless, it's fun having a bunch of deer around you. Keeps you on pins and needles, keeps you alert. I probably got 6 or 7 does swarming me. Here I am set up on a green field. I'll admit, I don't like hunting green fields, especially with a bow. I'm not saying you can't kill deer on green fields, and I do on occasion hunt green fields. But as you can read, this doe pretty much kept me from watching grass grow. It's a great way to hunt deer, great way to see deer. It's just not my cup of tea. I'd much rather be in the woods, staying mobile, trying to figure them out close to the bed areas. I'm back to the woods. Can't stand it. And I'm seeing bucks again. I don't get a very good look at them. A lot of times you guys won't even see half the deer I see because They got to be pretty close for me to get them on film, and it's really hard to focus through all those limbs and stuff, and it's just, oh, it's a nightmare trying to film deer. So usually if I can get them on film, they're pretty much close enough to kill if I wanted to kill them, especially with a gun. Not so much with a bow. I can have 10 yards with a bow and still not have a good bow shot. Just love this stuff. Guys, y'all get out there, give it a try. Hope some of these videos will help